Ah, we're live. Hi, everyone. This is Nicholas Roope. I'm calling from Polk in London. And I am here today, either morning, afternoon, or wherever you are in the world. I'm here with Dionne and Tobias, and they are from TamTam, which is an agency in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, if that's correct?
Yes.
Yep.
In Amsterdam. And they are here to talk about their work with Doctors Without Borders, which in Dutch is, would you mind pronouncing how that works in Dutch?
Artsen zonder grenzen.
Yeah, so anybody who doesn't speak Dutch who can get that URL right will get a prize at the end of this. And you can actually, if you want to have a look while you're listening in, then if you just go to lovieletters.eu and search for Doctors Without Borders, you can have a look through the case study just to get a bit of a look into what this team has produced. So over to you guys. Can you just describe what you both do at TamTams, just to get a bit of background?
About the project or about TamTam?
Just about you as an individual. So what do you do at TamTam, and what's been your involvement with the project?
My role was creating the designs, and together with Tobias, we created a concept and made all the designs, and yeah.
So, and I work at TamTam as a lead creative, so I focus on design and strategy, and in that role I work on the project for Doctors Without Borders.
Right, great. Okay, so actually, just before we start, and now Doctors Without Borders, Médecins Sans Frontières, and the Dutch version that I'm not going to try and pronounce. It's a name that we're all very aware of. We see it in the news a lot for obvious reasons. But can you just give just for anybody who's not familiar with exactly what they do and how they do it, just to give us a quick summary on the organisation before we launch into how you've worked with it in the Netherlands?
Yeah, sure. Doctors Without Borders is just their big mission is to give access to healthcare everywhere in the world, and especially to people who are living in areas where good healthcare isn't really common. So areas in war, really rural, or with a hurricane or a disaster, or with poverty or diseases like Ebola, for instance. So that difficult areas. That's especially where Doctors Without Borders gives best healthcare. They can, yeah.
Right, and their sort of funding model. I mean, is it all fundraising, and some of it government funds, or what's the background?
No, most of it is fundraising, and well, it's kind of unique because they're not really into lobbying with governments, but they're just focusing on giving healthcare by building a complete camp or a hospital within 48 hours.
Right.
It's amazing. Yeah.
And that's also presumably why they are often quoted on the news saying things that don't necessarily side with government agendas, correct? I mean.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Well, there must be an interesting client as well in that. Because of that, yeah. Right? So, I mean, you're sitting down with Doctors Without Borders, and there's clearly business to be done online and connect with the community and with the audience and supporters. What's your brief? So, what have you answered with this project? I mean, again, just very top line, but to give a bit of background.
What we did for the project?
Yeah. Well, what were you answering with the project? What issues were you tackling?
Yeah, they had a really old website and communication structure digitally, and what we focused on is creating a new platform where they can fulfill their mission, which is two-sided. One is doing fundraising, and the second one is spreading the news. And so those two things, that was the goal, to communicate that.
Yeah. So I mean, Dionne, presumably that was also demanded quite a different approach design-wise, right? Because I mean, so many NGOs treat digital channel as a sort of information archives versus kind of living, platforms for storytelling? What were you considering in the beginning of the project? How to address that?
About the storytelling, you mean? Yeah, we decided to, because we have a lot of stories to tell, and they do a lot of really good work, and all doctors give their stories and photos from the field, and it was important to show that, but we can't show them all on the homepage and give them all the same attention. So because we want to create a big impact, so we want to choose several times to focus just on one project to create a bigger impact. And so that was a big challenge for us to do.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? So many organisations that come to agencies like us are often wondering what to talk about. They have to invent content because it doesn't exist. And you have an organisation like this that have these incredibly compelling stories that are happening real time every single day. So it's almost like the challenge is the reverse, which is what do you prioritise? How do you really exploit those stories? And I think back to the brief. This is an organisation that exists because of support of individuals at the end of every tentacle of these connections. But how do you? I mean, it feels like we live in the communication world. We live in a world which is either about communication and storytelling and brand building, or it's about selling things and raising money. Now, obviously, you're very aware, and you've helped the organisation understand that you have to bring those two things close if you want to generate income, if you're going to get people to convert and get people to support, and those those moments can't be too far apart, because people don't. You might move people, but they don't stay moved very long. So how have you guys addressed that in the design and the structure and the interactions in the project?
I think we can't just ask for money. So it's important to tell a story, and by the stories we hope that they will see how important the donations are. So we have to tell a unique story and not just asking for money.
Yeah,
that is important.
Yeah, what we notice with a lot of NGOs is fear of being incomplete in information. That a lot of people who make a donation think that they really want to know, how is my money going to be spent? What is the salary of the CEO of this NGO? And of course, this is important information, but where it's mostly about is not telling the mission, but showing the mission. And that's where we wanted to focus on, to give a central position on the doctor in the field, connecting the doctor with the audience, because we really believe that people are not sincerely interested in companies. People are sincerely interested in other people, and so that's why we put the doctor on the spot.
Yeah. You may not have one to hand, but if you've got an example of something just to illustrate, so maybe a story or an issue that's been covered through the site that illustrates how this works, because obviously there's you'll create, rather than a brochure, you're creating almost like a publishing platform to deal with things, because obviously the timing is important as well. So is there anything that's where you've sort of sat back and watched the organisation take the platform and kind of and do what they need to do with it to react and get on top of a story and turn that into sport? Has that played out clearly in any moment?
The Ebola crisis was a really big crisis in the world, and you see a lot of news items about it, but I think what makes this special is that you see a real story of a doctor from the field over there, and you see pictures and videos from them, and see how they work and how important it is to what they do.
Yeah, the content is really honest. It is the footage is made by themselves.
Yeah.
So it's just a doctor with an iPhone in this camp in an Ebola area, documenting what's really going on. So it's pure content. It's not commercial. It's not edited.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think back to your, I mean, just to connect it with something you were just talking about, you know, it feels like, as you were saying, the NGO instinct is to you know, create incredibly comprehensive information to give people confidence. And yet, actually, you know, one of the big kind of concerns people have about charitable giving and supporting organizations and NGOs is, how's my money being spent and what is actually happening on the ground? Then actually having a doctor real time with an iPhone, you know, on the ground experiencing the thing they're hearing about through the news, surely is a you know, incredibly convincing means to tell that story and to answer that question for them. That's part of the strategy, I take it.
Yeah, that is far more important to give a real story instead of saying we are spending your money well. That's where we really believe in, and so the website is actually just a window on their world, and you can go to the website and you can see what's going on in the world, and that makes it really, really special and really important. We don't have to worry that much about the graphics, but just tell people what's going on. So it's actually more a news platform and a storytelling platform than a corporate NGO kind of website.
Yeah, and the website is really visual, a lot of images, because we don't want to tell them, but how it's on the field and what they do.
And what do you? I mean, obviously, when you're designing and structuring, you know, any kind of any platform, any you know, system to publish, you have to obviously guess how things will be used in the field and anticipate, you know, how the organisation will adapt to its use. Have there been a lot of surprises, or, you know, are there any interesting stories about how, you know, new features you needed to add potentially to accommodate for a way of working you didn't anticipate, or do you think you were kind of more or less on you know, on the line?
So what kind of challenges we saw?
So for instance, for instance, you know, people, because had you anticipated the you know, the degree to which doctors would want to be sending in, say, a lot of video versus, you know, more kind of written pieces, and you know, whether it enabled their contributions easily, or whether you needed to adapt to the real ways that they work? Because obviously most kind of conventional CMSs aren't structured with those demands, so it's just how you handle some of those.
What we had in mind at first during the pitch and during the concept phase was that we wanted to tell a really structured story. For example, the Ebola crisis, where we thought, okay, now we're going to give a time lapse. What I mentioned before, the 48 hours, that they can build a camp in 48 hours. We wanted to tell that story. So there is this outbreak in an area, and Doctors Without Borders will be there within 48 hours, and we want to give people some kind of a log, and that you can see how do they build the camp and what are they doing now. But actually we didn't, because the content was scattered, and also because of the content that the doctors create themselves. It's not really polished content, and so we had to scratch that idea entirely and focus on the raw and a bit grimy content that we got from the doctors. And but in the end, we were, of course, at first we were really disappointed. But then we got the content. This feels so much more real than it does when we had the actual ID. So in the end, we were actually kind of happy that everything fell in place.
Yeah, that's very.
So there was a big change in our process and a big change in our thinking, and I believe that really makes the work unique. That you can really see their story instead of us telling their story.
Yeah,
big
totally.
difference.
Yeah, it's a big. I think it's a big, issue we deal with as sort of professional communicators. Is there's always an assumption that slickness is consistently the story you want to tell, when actually authenticity might be a much more important, quality.
Yeah.
But that's interesting to hear you playing that back.
Yeah. So the biggest challenge, I think, for the whole project was how to fit in the content and how to use it, because they have a lot of content.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and make something that also the editors at the Doctors Without Borders office can work with, that they can create a good story with their content. As a designer, you always want to design the story, and sometimes the focus is too much on designing and polishing the story instead of telling the story. So yeah, there was something, a really nice lesson that we had during the process.
Now we're talking about one of the most kind of exciting and strongest brands in the NGO space, with incredibly exciting content, with a very important job to do. So obviously, as a brief, when you won the project, you must have been very excited, and when you started the project, you were very excited. Now we've probably got quite a few agency people tuning in, and they will know this experience very well. You're some way down the line in the project, everything's going great, you fired up, the team, it's got momentum, and then suddenly you hit a wall, and to change course. Now, obviously, if you've checked in to see the work, you can see it's incredibly accomplished, and you came out of the process with something great. Just tell us a bit about that moment when it kind of hit the wall, or it hit this transitionary moment, and why you hit it, and kind of how you got through the other side.
Well, it was really, really hard to switch, because we had the whole idea about the timeline and everything. And how can we create another story or another strong concept for the homepage to motivate people to make a donation? So, it was hard to change that and way of thinking and start over again. So
At first we try to stick the new content in the old concept that we had, and then you're just making workarounds. But in the end, during the process, then you figure out, okay, now we are so far removed from the original concept that we had at first of telling the story by the timeline with the wrong content, that you are just, it feels almost like debugging your concept. And so then there came a moment that we had to say, okay, now we just have to throw it all away and look at what we really got. What kind of content can we really use, and how can we use that to create great interaction? Yeah, it was hard, but the phase that we tried to save our concept till the moment that we said, okay, this isn't going to work, that was the hardest phase. But then when you can let it go and start over again.
And who was clinging on the hardest? Was it you guys, or was it the clients, or a mix of both?
I think for us, because the concept we had with the timeline was really strong, and we really believed in that, but we had to do a step backward and think about the content we have. So I think for the client it was a less big step.
Yeah, I think the client already saw it coming a bit, that they thought, this is a great concept and a great way to tell a story, but we are all shaking already, because do we get the content in time, and what happens if a new disaster strikes? Now with the Zika virus, for instance, in Southern America, they do not have everything at place right away. So it was, for them, it was also kind of a relief that say, okay, now we get something that we can just steadily build step by step, instead of going all the way.
Yeah, we try to keep the concept and try to make a little difference in it, but we saw that won't work because yeah, because of the content.
Yeah, and in the end, I think the client was happy that well, we were stubborn, but at the end, we didn't stay stubborn. So
yeah, good.
You are darlings, yeah.
Yeah, well, great creativity is often as much about knowing when to drop an idea rather than just invent one, right? So, and you won a Lovie Award and have a fantastic presence out there. So it clearly helped, right? And if you dared to retrace your steps and go back in your imagination and launch what you had, would you have been in a better place, or are we in a much better place now? What's your
what best play?
If you went back and realized the original idea, do you still think that would have worked, or would everything that you've learned have kind of dismissed that as an approach? Do you think you would have run into all the trouble that you'd anticipated now that you've completed the journey and you can kind of look back with all your experience?
I think, yeah. What do you think?
Well, I think we learned a lot from it, and if I look back, I think what we created now is something which is much more sustainable. Yeah. And our first idea was far more campaign-based.
Yeah.
That could last for a couple of months, and then you need something new. And now we have created a way to keep the platform far more sustainable.
Yeah. Yeah, and for me, it was a learning to look first at what kind of content do we have, and how can we build a website around the content. So
yeah. There will always be disasters, and wherever there are disasters, there will always be a need for Doctors Without Borders, presumably. So entirely, the content itself is the source of sustainability, right? So giving that a framework and understanding how to publish that as effectively as possible is the answer, right? So that's great that you got there. Is there any interaction between the way that you had to think about the structure and the role of the site and how they conduct themselves offline? I mean, obviously you've talked about the publishing side of it, which is a clear connection. But are there other ways that the digital ecosystem that sort of enables their organisation?
Yeah, we treat the website Artsen Zonder Grenzen .nl as a center of the ecosystem. But at the same time, we are creating really small campaigns on social media and also standalone on the web, which always redirects to the donation page. For us, it's really important because then we can tell far more stories, always within the same strategy of giving this doctor the central position in the story, but also interact with different target audiences. For instance, on Facebook or on Instagram, we have a completely different conversation with the audience than we have on the platform that we have built now. So that's really important for us. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've worked with charities on and off and NGOs on and off for many years, for 15 years, and our journey started with digital channels and the whole ecosystem being very auxiliary, these peripheral concerns, treated primarily as kind of marketing vehicles. That's changed, and this is an example again where the digital channels become the primary means to communicate and to build reputation and to enable their businesses, and particularly to connect what they're doing with the fundraising that supports that activity. Just looking at the area more generally, I mean, why is that shift taking place? I mean, in a way it's obvious, but I'd like to hear your views on it. And what do you think other NGOs can learn from the work that you've done and the approach that you've taken?
Yeah, I think how to tell your story and a unique story, and that fits your organization. And yeah, that donations online are so much more important than because the most donations are done by the website. So online is really important for your organization.
Yeah, you're stepping right in the action. So when you click an ad or a banner, or you see something on Facebook, and you can click it, and you can directly go to the donation page, which is such a short way to reach your goal. And that's why we believe online is the most important thing, well, especially for Doctors Without Borders, who also want to engage with a younger audience. A lot of NGOs have problems with connecting with younger audiences because what we call the baby boom generation, they have a lot of money, and they have the time and the money to make donations. But younger people and a younger target audience, they are far more, well, they have less money, so they think twice before they spend it, and they are just only online. So that's why we need to focus completely on that part.
And online is fast, and that's also for the newer, younger group.
How much of kind of mobile payments and mobile wallets and all these things featured in kind of in strategy so far, and particularly going forward? Because to your point about the younger generations, the sort of seamlessness of interactions and the effort to which they're prepared to go to, and the length of time you're able to kind of maintain their attention is so short. Do you have to think about that structurally, and in terms of how you deploy donations in particularly the kind of mobile channels and mobile social?
Yeah, we are thinking about that one. Now it's just basic payment, and of course you have the mobile ways to pay. But I believe in the future it's going to be far more interesting if you look at the possibilities that Messenger is going to offer, what Facebook are going to do with Messenger. They have such amazing plans. So then I can have a dialogue with Doctors Without Borders and pay instantly through Messenger, or I can use WhatsApp. Those kind of possibilities are super interesting.
So if any of you guys are listening, here's your case study in the making. So you have to get in touch with TamTam to start trialing payment, because obviously the whole sector will need to travel in that direction. So it would be it'd be exciting to see you back here next year talking about how you've added those features and see how they've worked. Just we're coming to the end now, and I want to ask you something more general about your place in Amsterdam, sitting in Europe as established and recognised leaders in the space. What does it mean to you as a team and as individuals to be part of that European industry? Do you even think has that even crossed your mind? I suppose you entered the Lovie Award, so it must have crossed your mind at some point.
Yeah, we feel really honoured to be seen as a leader because we do that. Right. But I think this gives us the motivation to make better work and make the best out of ourselves. So,
it's a big compliment. We haven't seen it like that. We believe that you are just as good as the work that you produce, especially the last work you produced.
Yeah.
So great motivation for us, because for us winning a Lovie is something really special, and it really motivates us on other projects in the future as well, to maintain the quality and keep up the quality, just keep coming to London every year. So.
Yeah.
Well, that's the point in the Lovies is to really sift out all the stuff that's going on out there and to raise the great exemplars, so to inspire other people and obviously to inspire our own teams to do better. And obviously that's why the lovieletters.eu was created as well with Google, to show some of the backstories and show take people into really what's behind these great success stories. And I think the last half an hour we've spent chatting is testament to that. I think that the background and the story you guys have shared with us has been incredibly inspiring. So thank you very much. And so Tobias, do you have any closing remarks, or just you can just wave as well and say goodbye? It's entirely up to you.
Well, yeah, I would say thank you for watching, and if you have any in-depth questions, you all know how to contact us.
Yeah.
So, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yeah,
thank you. Pleasure meeting. Over and out. Thank you.